folks. Welcome back to the Path to Recovery podcast, talking episode 15 today. Knowing we are clean and sober doesn't necessarily mean that we're done our work. Why are we not done our work if we are clean and sober? What's telling us that we have to work more? Well, essentially, folks, for people that have gone through it, that are going through it, every day presents us with different challenges that require us to be a new, clear thinking kind of person. And we need to be better prepared to make responsible life choices while we're being clean and sober. There's a lot of triggers out there, folks, that we get every day in our face, and they test us, and they test our desire to remain clean and sober. We could be driving down the street and someone cuts us off, and we might get pissed off about it. We quickly find ourselves into that old aggressive behavior, wanting either that drug or that drink or whatever other addiction we have. We want that back so we can pretend to cope with it better. We might be talking to a friend and they ask us to go for a drink, knowing full well we are recovering addicts. We might also be tempted by someone we just met to have sex, and knowing that we're recovering from our sex addiction, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe our loved ones could ask us to loan them money when they fully know that we're struggling day to day and we may not be able to afford our own rent. We might say something accidentally that sets off our significant other, and maybe they hit us again. Any of those scenarios, and thousands of others just like it, can happen any day, anytime, while we're in our clean and sober state. It's kind of like the addiction or the evil or the ego sees us as very vulnerable, but attacks us anyways. And they always tend to do it when we're in a weak moment, and it tries to persuade us to break down and give into those old ways. Instead, we need to stand strong and refuse to be bullied by our own mind into slipping backwards. We work hard constantly being on alert and being prepared, yet at the same time, we don't want to be paranoid about everything. We need a good balance in our thoughts, which means we have to believe that we can and will remain clean and sober. When we have a belief that we're going to be clean and sober, our thoughts and our actions ultimately should follow along. What is it that we can do to stay on this course of sobriety or being clean or just being done with our addiction? Like we're done smoking cigarettes or something. So there's several concepts that we've talked about before in other podcasts that I want to bring up again just to kind of help drive this home. 6 things have to be fully understood in order to get us to our clean and sober life, to where we can actually claim that we're recovered, not recovering. The first, as I've always been telling you, belief. What we believe is our truth. Our belief system is everything. If we believe we deserve to be clean and sober, or we deserve to not have a desire for cigarettes or overeating, as long as we believe it deep in our hearts that we deserve more than that, then it's going to be our truth. And with that truth, what we believe creates our core values. What do we value most in life? When we're in our addiction, we devalue everything to become addicted. So what are the core values that follow along our new belief of being clean and sober? Those core values create our thoughts because our thoughts are driven through that belief system. And if we have core values saying, I will not take that drink, or I don't need to have that drink anymore, then our thoughts should revolve around that. When we drive by the liquor store, I know that's a liquor store. I know I have a problem and I'm working through it, but I believe I deserve to be sober, so I'm not going to stop there today. That's a thought that we might have in our head. Our thoughts then create the human emotions. It makes us feel a certain way. We tag on to that thought and it can bring us down or it can bring us up. Those emotions will drive our behaviors or our actions. How we feel is kind of what we end up doing. If we're feeling uptight, if we're feeling stressed, if we're feeling discomfort, if we're feeling overwhelmed, then our actions are going to follow that. And our actions dictate the result of everything we do every day. So as long as we believe we deserve to be clean and sober and free from any of our addictions, our actions every day need to follow that belief. If we behave different than what our beliefs are, then we really are just spewing at the mouth and saying, yeah, I believe this, but I don't really believe it. If we look at those items that I was talking about before, we can see how everything flows together. And it flows together whether we're in a healing mind or not. If we're believing negatively, then our core values aren't necessarily going to be clear, clean, healthy values, which means our thoughts aren't going to be clear and clean, healthy thoughts. Therefore, our actions by the end of the day are going to be filled with a lot of negativity. You can say anything you want in order to give the impression that you want to be clean and sober, but unless you truly believe it deep in your heart, it's not going to come true. Talking about being clean, talking about not eating that food, talking about not smoking is not going to get you to not being addicted to it. You got to walk the path, folks. You have to walk the walk. Your words should be followed by your actions, belief, values, thoughts, emotions, and then our behaviors and actions. In order to make sure that you're following the path to recovery, you first and foremost have to be very honest with yourself. Let's not try to BS our way through any kind of healing, because it's not going to impress anyone by being dishonest, and just about every addict is like a clear glass window, folks. We can see right through it. A former alcoholic always knows when there's an alcoholic around him. A former heroin addict always knows when there's heroin addicts around them. There's a smell, there's a body language, there's something different in your eyes, there's twitches that you have. There's something about you that if you're not honest and saying, I'm working hard, I'm stumbling here and there, but boy, I'm working hard on trying to be clean and sober, there's a respect that comes with that. Because those people that have recovered or people that are watching you recover, they would respect your honesty and knowing that you're struggling more than they would respect you just talking it. And then 20 minutes later, watching you do something contradicting that discussion you just had. So, clean and sober living. How do we step into it? Well, one of the hardest things to do is remove yourself from any of those behavior patterns. I've talked about patterns before in one of the other podcasts. Patterns is just something that we continuously do over and over, mostly unconsciously, as we react to something and we use our old historical patterns to just continue to go down the same path. So what we have to do is remove ourselves from the patterns of unhealthy behaviors. We got to find a safe place to begin the change. And in order to do that, we can't be in the same places that we were falling into. If we stop hanging out with the unhealthy people or the addicts, we can start healing from our addiction. But if you insist on hanging out with those same people that constantly poke you and prod you and try to convince you to go back down the dark path, you're inevitably going to go down that dark path. How about find a safe place to be, not to belong? We don't need to be with other people. We just believe that we need to be with other people. Folks, we've got to learn to be inside ourselves. We need to be able to be comfortable, confident, happy, joyous, and loving within ourselves. Healing is always from within. Finding a safe place to be helps ease the pains of change, especially from our addictive behaviors. Simply finding a place to belong or to be around others, it's going to potentially keep us locked into our addictions. Or it'll bring us more stress or more potential problems that we aren't quite healed from yet, and we don't have the coping skills to deal with it. Be safe by yourself before you can be safe with anybody else. Another key factor, folks, is just to be able to release the guilt or shame from your game. There is no place for guilting or shaming ourselves because everything we experience in life is a lesson or a gift. We learn to cope or deal, or better yet, heal to become stronger and more resilient. We can find healing in every situation that arises each day through the practice of forgiveness as we continue towards a clean and sober life. Learning to forgive ourselves for stumbling, learning to forgive ourselves for responding a certain way, and then ultimately learning to forgive others for their actions. And again, if somebody does something very bad to you, you're not going to be trying to forgive that action that they did. You're going to be forgiving them for the pain that they're feeling in order to present that negative moment to you. When we slip, we have to get back up and continue. There's no reason to guilt or shame yourself and say, oh, I screwed up. I'm no good. I'll never do it. I'll never be able to do this. Folks, everybody's gone through it. I've gone through it. When I decided to stop drinking, the hardest thing to do was to go into those places and be around people that are filling up that glass of beer and chugging, doing shots, and everything else that was so difficult for me. What I had to do was I had to remove myself from that place. And those few moments where I did slip and drink and get drunk again, I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for slipping. I didn't beat myself up and tell me I couldn't do anything. I didn't say you'll never be sober. I never got to that point because I knew it was very important and very critical to my success to not blame myself for anything. So there's two major pieces to staying on the path to recovery. Honesty, I mentioned it before, with deep-rooted honesty towards yourself. Playing a game is not why we are listening to this podcast. We want to be clean and sober and free from our addiction. If we continue to hang out with our addict friends and our negative Nellies and those people that bring us that environment that hooks us back in, then we can't become free from our addiction or our addictive behaviors. It is merely us asking to not heal. So true healing comes from change. Doing the same thing over and over is never going to give us a different result. When someone asks us if we are doing okay with our efforts to be clean and sober, telling them, I will never do that again. It's never going to happen for me. I'm totally done with that. That is not even close to a guarantee and might not likely be an honest response anyway. When you respond with, you know what? I've had better days. I'm stumbling. I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm taking it day by day and I'm still looking to that light at the end of the tunnel. That's a more truthful statement. And people will feel you. They'll feel your pain. And someone who is recovered from what you're recovering from will deeply understand where that comes from. There's an immediate level of guilt we tend to apply towards ourselves when we're not being completely honest about how we are feeling that can continue to direct us in a negative way. This will not help us at all in our path to recovery. Honesty prevails in all healing. Honesty with yourself above all else. The second aspect of this walking the path of recovery, change. You have to prepare for drastic changes. And it's not just within you. The changes are going to come from people around you. Our actions will need to change to provide us the healthy healing we desire. If we think we can heal by doing the same things we did when we were using or when we were drunk or drinking or having sex with wrong people or by overeating, if we think we can heal by doing those things again, we're completely BSing ourselves. Totally mistaken. It ain't going to happen. You have to change your approach and your actions in order to stop the addiction or the addictive behavior. If you don't change it, it will not change. So it's time to change all of that. It's time to step up and begin the transformation from doubters and non-believers to compassionate beings with a strong will and desire for clean, sober, healthy, and a vibrant life. We have to be ready to change. We are ready to create our future. We are ready to believe in ourselves once again. With these changes that we take in our lives to become clean and sober, you have to prepare yourself. Deep inside yourself, you have to prepare yourself to lose a lot of people in your life. Not by death, but by letting go. As we change out of our addiction, as I got sober, I no longer hung out with those people that were not sober. Did they always ask me to go out drinking? Yep, they absolutely did. They wanted to prod and poke me. Come on, dude, it's only one, it's only one, it's only one. All it takes is the one. When you're recovering or when you're recovered, all it takes is the one. So we have to be standing steady with our beliefs and tell those people, look, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be hanging out with you guys anymore. I'm not going to be going bowling with you anymore. I'm not going to be going down that alley and looking up my next heroin addiction. I'm not going to be going to the store and buying those 3 pints of ice cream. I'm not going to be abusing myself. I'm not going to buy those cigarettes again. I'm not going to try and bum cigarettes off somebody again. When we say those things, the people that we used to hang out with or spend time with, they're going to fade away. And during changes, drastic changes like this, folks, your family may never be a part of your life again because your family struggles and the emotional trauma that comes from families can sometimes be the driving force to your addiction. So yes, you may have to let go of your mother, your father, your siblings, even your children. You may have to let them go to the point where you get healthy, clean, sober, loving, caring, nurturing. And then you might be able to bring them back into your life. I had to do this. I had to get rid of everything that was near and dear to me. I had to shut everything down. I no longer worked. I no longer had my children with me. I had never talked to my family. I had to clear myself up, clear myself out. I had to basically remove myself from everything and anything that would potentially give me a struggle because I had to focus on the healing path. I had to focus on the healing thoughts and beliefs and the things that I needed to do in order to stay alive. Not just to stay sober, but to stay alive. So here's a quote from the co-author of the booklet series, Path to Recovery. Her name's Laura Lee. After my first 5 years of being clean, I realized, quite shockingly, that I still had work to do on how I thought and what I believed. Now, after 18 years clean, guess what? I still work on me daily. I pay attention to how I think, how I act and respond, down to the smallest of details, including what music I listen to and the movies I watch. That's a pretty powerful statement, folks. She's even saying that she had to change her music, what she listens to, and the movies. No more horror movies. No more movies that make her get antsy or uncomfortable. She had to clear everything and change everything. Her movies started getting into more spiritual, more God-related, because that was where she needed to go. And it's all about love. Is there love in violent movies? Is there love in the MMA, mixed martial arts? Is there love in the news every night? Do you hear the political struggles that go on in this country? Is that showing you love? No, folks, that's struggle, that's separation, that's hatred, that's anger, that's instilling negative emotions in us. Guess what? If you want to be clean and sober, if you want to be happy and healthy and live a beautiful life and be in touch with everything that's good about you, then you have to surround yourself with that type of stuff. People that are like-minded, people that believe similarly to you, do things that are good, help people, because guess what? We're helping you. And I needed help one day, and I got help one day. That's why I'm here to help you today. So keep all this in mind, folks, as we walk down this path to recovery. Just because we got to that spot, just because we've no longer taken that sip or looked up our next hit or our next injection or the next food binge, realize that we have to keep thinking, keep working, keep believing every day that we deserve to be healthy and clean from our issues. So I thank you so very much for listening in. I appreciate your time, your effort, your energy in what you're doing to try to get to where I'm at. And I try to get to where my mentors were at. So it's a one step at a time, but we're all together. Thank you very much. God bless you all. And I hope to see you on the recovered path. Thank you.